The Lord of Darkness by Shelby Cody Sweeney. Part 1, The End of the World. Chapter 3, Pride and Sloth. Lucifer, the archdemon of pride, was posing as a politician named Luke Goodman somewhere in the middle of the United States. His skin was deathly pale, his hair and eyes were black as tar, and an angry red scar trailed from his right eyebrow to the left of his chin and shifted the bottom half of his face slightly to the right. None of these characteristics appeared on his campaign posters. To the humans, his skin had a healthy glow, his black hair was luscious, his gray eyes were welcoming, and there was no hint of a scar. Nick is sometimes called Old Scratch for scratching that scar into his face. This may seem trivial to you, but it was the most violent act a seraph had ever committed against another celestial. Lucifer and his husband Leviathan never forgave Nick for it, and they hate when humans confuse Lucifer with the devil. Luke Goodman's campaign office was, as usual, crowded and noisy. People shouting to people next to them to be heard over the shouts of other people shouting to people next to them. Nick materialized from a shadow in the corner of the room, and a woman immediately handed him a stack of papers. "Take these to Stacy, third row down," she ordered, returning to her phone call without waiting for a response. Amused, Nick brought the papers to the person he assumed was Stacy. He then took an empty chair and started mimicking the people around him. He picked up a phone and had loud, enthusiastic conversations with non-existent people on the other end of the dial tone. He typed gibberish into the computer and signed several forms with humorous names. All in all, he was a little disappointed when Lucifer walked through the door. Archdemon Lucifer of Pride noticed Nick's presence immediately, but chose to ignore him for as long as possible. It was easy enough, since he was swarmed by subordinates as soon as the door opened. "Mr. Goodman, we need a statement for the press about the hordes of people migrating to fallout shelters in the mountains." "Tell him," Lucifer began, but was cut off by a sudden power outage. It wasn't a localized outage. Electricity cut off across the globe, silencing the world for the next half hour, courtesy of the apocalypse. Lucifer knew exactly what was happening, so he took action during the stunned lull before the panic. He stood on a desk for better visibility and said, "Listen up, no need to panic. We're far enough ahead in the polls we can afford a few minor setbacks. Everyone, take a half-hour lunch. God willing, we'll be back up and running by then." The room visibly relaxed and hesitantly emptied of humans. Nick swiveled around in his chair a few times while Lucifer pretended not to see him. "Love the new campaign posters," Nick said finally. "What do you want, Scratch?" Lucifer demanded coldly. "The world," Nick grinned. Archdemon Lucifer of Pride crossed his arms and continued to glare. "Your sense of humor's still missing in action, I see," Nick quipped. "You're invited to vote on postponing the apocalypse. Personal conflicts aside," Lucifer snorted derisively. "I know you love this job," Nick continued, "and you love how easy humans are. They dedicate parades to you, for hell's sake." Lucifer rolled his eyes. "Save your breath. I'm voting for the apocalypse." "Why?" Nick asked, despite knowing the answer. "Because it hurts you," Lucifer snarled. "Also, humans are disgusting. They've thought of all sorts of government structures with real potential to succeed if only none of them tried to take advantage. They're untrustworthy at their core." "Not most of them," Nick contended. "But always some of them," Lucifer argued. The devil shrugged. "Yeah, well, had to ask." "You really didn't," retorted the Archdemon of Pride. "I'll leave when you RSVP on this signet," Nick told him. Lucifer snatched the signet from Nick and pressed his thumb to it. Archangel Nick of Penance and Faith took it back, wrapped himself in shadows, and vanished. Lucifer spat at the area he had occupied. Meanwhile, the apocalypse surged forward. Hail and meteorites rained down, scorching the land. An oil rig caught fire and sank into the sea, decimating the surrounding marine life. Some of the meteorites that collided with Earth seeped lethal minerals, poisoning much of the world's fresh water. The planet darkened as clouds of ash obscured the light. Nick didn't notice any of this, because he was on the other side of the planet where the sun was still shining brightly. Next on his list was Archdemon Belphegor, Belph of Sloth. For the last few decades, he'd been running a commune and calling himself the Guru. The previous 3 encounters were brutal but expected. Nick was confident he could get Belph on his side. Actually, at that moment, he was fairly confident the remaining archdemons and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse would vote in his favor. If he'd been right, he would have won the vote. Nick delighted in the fresh air and sunlight as he sauntered through the fields and what could only loosely be described as gardens. He wasn't alone. The grass was littered with lounging humans. It was hard to tell how many there were, since the grass hadn't been mowed in maybe ever. He might have tripped over a few of them if he wasn't able to see the gentle glow of their souls permeating the foliage. Nick succumbed to an impulse to flop onto the grass and look up at the clouds. He frowned upon seeing the only cloud in the sky, which was so wispy it looked like it gave up halfway through deciding to be a cloud that day. There was some rustling to his left, and he watched a human woman roll over to his side. Her tangled blonde hair was riddled with various plant matter: grass, leaves, flowers, twigs, and, alarmingly, a leafy vine that appeared to have taken root there. "Welcome to the commune," she proclaimed with a wide smile. "How do you know I'm new?" Nick wondered. "You were walking through the field," the woman explained. "That's totally bad for you. You only have so many heartbeats before you die, so if you keep your heart rate down, you live longer." Nick smirked. "I'm pretty sure that's not true." "It is," she insisted. "That's how the guru lives so long and looks totally young. You just gotta chillax and not stress about stuff or move around a ton. Then the whole world is like your own Garden of Eden." The devil felt his stomach twist into a knot. He reminded himself that this was no time to dwell on the past. He needed to stay focused on his mission to save Earth. Nick stood up and continued on his journey to the guru's yurt. The minimalist yurt smelled of must, mold, and marijuana. It was minimalist even for a yurt. Thin walls with large gaps between the planks, and something that barely qualified as a roof. Belf was lounging on an assortment of large beanbags. He had tan skin and muddy brown eyes, with long frizzy brown beard and mustache to match his long hair. His robes were probably once white, but were now the colors of various types of dirt. He smiled sleepily up at Nick. "Leave us," Belf commanded his followers, who bowed before silently exiting. To Nick, he asked, "What up?" Nick joined him on the ground. "I don't know if you heard, but some people are saying it's time to end the world." "Whoa, for real? Gnarly," said Belf. "But what is destruction, if not the precursor to creation? Everything has its time, and it's beautiful." "But it's not just beautiful because it's brief," Nick argued. "So true," murmured Archdemon Belf of Sloth as his eyelids drooped. "It'd just be so great to keep doing what we're doing, you know?" Archangel Nick of Penance continued. "Totally. Instead, we gotta destroy the world," Nick said, "and then we gotta build a new world and evolve new people and introduce the basics, and it's all a big hassle." Belf nodded. "Right on. What's your point?" Nick told him, "We're gonna vote on postponing the apocalypse. I want you to vote on to postpone." Belf considered it carefully, gazing off into the lush greenery that was clearly visible through the yurt walls. "I'll make this real easy for you," the devil offered. "Either way, I'm your boss for at least the next 1,000 years. How do you want to spend that time? I can keep ignoring you while you do whatever it is you do, or I can turn your life into a personal hell where you work nonstop to make up for all your slacking off over the last 10 millennia. That got his attention. Belf sat up straight, wide-eyed. Then he relaxed, shrugged, and flopped back onto his beanbag. "Guess I'm voting to postpone the apocalypse." "I thought you might," Nick smirked, holding out the signet. "Place your finger here to agree to attend the vote." Doing so, Belf added, "Nick, that was totally not cool." "I know," Nick frowned, before enveloping himself in shadows and teleporting away.